started writing Food for the Archons as a book of despair after watching my father die in 2013. During his transition, I experienced a series of paranormal and psychic events that left me feeling that I had either gone completely crazy or fell into humanity's darkest secret. I spent the next 5 years conducting extensive research, and I quickly learned that what I had experienced was real. My journey brought me to an understanding that showed me that despite the terrifying reality of an unseen predator, we as humans have a forgotten power. Just knowing this brings us tremendous hope in what once seemed a dark reality. I wrote this book for me in hopes of gaining a better understanding of our reality and relationship to it. But my hope is that you will find as much value in reading it as I did in writing it. I Am Human, Food for the Archons, humanity's psychic connections, simulated realities, parallel worlds, and the manipulation of mankind. It's available on Amazon.com and at sixcentsmedia.net and wherever books are sold. I'm Dennis Nappi II, reminding you to let your intuition be your guide. Thank you.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong in the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Having a hard time starting this podcast. I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks now, and I got hit just the last couple of days with a bunch of spiritual concepts that I want to explore and just talk about further and just sit in that energy. But I also think it's important to apply that information to our current state of affairs here in regards to the energy surrounding the upcoming political election. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. This is not a political podcast. I'm not going to talk about one party versus the other. I'm not going to try to sway you in one direction or the other. What I want to focus on is making sure we're talking about how we can safeguard our own energy and our own thoughts from the influence that is out there. Many of us who are sensitive, I know, can feel it, and it's tense, and we need to be able to separate from that. In order to have this discussion, I want to talk about some things that I've covered in the past, and I also want to go on a tangent and talk about two remote viewing projects that were profoundly spiritual for me that I think is important. It helps me to separate from all of this other stuff that's going on. It's a reminder that there's more going on in this world in a positive way. I'm not trying to go down dark rabbit holes today. They exist, but I'm not trying to go down in that direction because I think our perspective and our perception is incredibly important, especially right now, especially with all the rhetoric and the bombardment. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. There is a tremendous amount of energy and signals being projected in our direction. I'm running this through my mind. The teaser, the fear mongering way to say that would be we are under attack. And I don't want to word it that way because I think that there's all this information out there. I'm talking on a spiritual level, but it manifests in the text messages, the emails, the spam, the physical junk mail that we're getting, the phone calls that we're getting, the conversations that people are having, the ads on YouTube, the ads on cable, everything politics, trying to get you to cast your vote or to register to vote, all that stuff. And I don't want to use the expression. I mean, obviously I used it, but I don't want to focus on we're under attack because in saying that, I think it takes our power away. I don't think we're under attack. I think there's a lot that's being projected towards us. And I think if we're not aware of it, we can, I don't want to say sucked in, we can harmonize with energies that we don't intend to harmonize with. Spend 5 minutes reading political debate threads or engaging in a conversation or watching something on TV, and you start to resonate with something about it. You start to get pulled into it. And I said it 8 years ago when I did a podcast called The Trump Effect, that there's an energetic component to this that many people are not aware of. And if you're not careful and cautious, you can get sucked into it as well. It's very hard to disconnect, but at, it, once you recognize what's going on, you're able to distance yourself from what can become toxic for us. And I'm always pushing on this platform to let your intuition be your guide and to strengthen your intuition and to learn how to develop these intuitive abilities here for reasons just like this. It's important to pay attention to your own energy, to your own mind, and recognize that other signals come in, because when you start to become sensitive to other things that aren't coming from you coming in, you can make a decision. You have a choice. And I equate it to, if I walk into a room and it smells bad, my sense of smell is going to detect, oh, there's an odor here. And now I've identified something's off and I can make a decision. I can go look for the odor. I can spray some air freshener. I can find the cause of it and get rid of it. Or I can choose to just remove myself from the situation. I have choices to safeguard myself against whatever's coming at me by using my sense of smell. Same thing with my eyes, same thing with my ears. It's no different with our intuition and our sixth sense. When you start to feel these things, if you can recognize this isn't me, this is coming from somewhere else, you start to look at it differently and you can make different choices on how you're going to interact with that energy. I want to backpedal for a minute and just read some things. I've talked about it in my books. I've talked about it on the podcast, but I have three quotes here. And I'm teaching my first cohort for Reiki 1. And I'm loving every second of this experience. And we were preparing to go through vocabulary and terms and talking about different ways that we receive intuitive and psychic information. And I felt compelled to start that lecture, that lesson, with some quotes from things that have always inspired me. I'm going to read them and then talk a little bit about them. So the first quote comes from Whitley Strieber from his book, The Key, A True Encounter. Whitley writes, part of the electromagnetic field that fills the nervous system rests a few centimeters above the skin outside of the body. This field is an organ just like the heart or the brain. It is in quantum superposition, the electrons effectively everywhere in the universe and nowhere specific. It may be imprinted by information from anywhere and any time. With it, you may see other worlds. You may see the past and the future. You may see into the lives of those around you. You may haunt God. And as I'm reading that again, I'm reminded of when I first pulled that quote, I don't know, 2014, when I started writing Food for the Archons, and I revisited that. That was a recurring data point in my book that I kept coming back to. You know, that electromagnetic field that is a part of your central nervous system that allows you to see, because the electrons are in superposition, meaning they're everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. You can see other worlds and you can haunt God. That sounds crazy, but during that time, I learned remote viewing, I've learned Reiki, and I've had some experiences that have been profoundly magnificent in viewing or glimpsing other worlds. And dare I say, haunting, I'll say a higher power. And haunting might not be the right word, but experiencing. And I want to share some of that tonight. And I'm sharing this again as a reminder. A lot of these problems are thrown in front of us right now. A lot of these challenges, a lot of these debates, and they distract us, in my opinion, from the real work, that we should be doing. I'm sorry, I don't want to say should. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. That we could be doing. That, in my opinion, better serves us as opposed to voting for someone else to do the work we expect them to do. That, let's face it, they're not going to. All right, my next quote that I want to share here as a reminder: the electromagnetic heart. This is from Roland McCready, PhD of the Heart Math Research Center, and it's titled The Energetic Heart Bioelectromagnetic Interactions Within and Between People. The heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. Electromagnetic field is around 5,000 times stronger than that produced by the brain, not impeded by tissues, and can be measured several feet away from the body, so the field is not slowed down. Blood pressure waves produced by cardiac rhythm are felt by every cell in the body. The nervous system acts as an antenna, which is tuned to and responds to the magnetic fields produced by the hearts of other individuals, which they call cardioelectromagnetic communication. So again, the nervous system acts as an antenna, which is tuned to and responds to the magnetic fields produced by the hearts of others. And this is what I was talking about. I've had first come across this when I did my podcast called The Trump Effect. It was relevant then, it's relevant now, it's relevant every single day of our lives. Our fields, our electromagnetic fields, are in constant communication with one another, and they harmonize and they resonate. And the stronger the field, meaning if you have 50 people that are feeling the same thing and you come into their presence, you're going to start to experience those things as well. We can add technology into this. Now there's several patents out there on putting things in signals. And I'm not trying to sound too conspiracy, but this stuff exists. And we need to be mindful of what we're stepping into or what we're experiencing. And like I said, we're being bombarded from so many different areas. And it's important to, number one, recognize that this exists, that if we're not paying attention, we can fall into harmony with something that really doesn't serve us. That's that feeling that drives us, right? It might be something that's not serving us. And in conjunction with that, we have the work of Cleve Baxter, who talks about primary perception. Baxter concluded, this is from an article by LSJ called Cleve Baxter Talks to Plants and They Talked Back. Baxter concluded that plants had some heretofore undiscovered sense, he called it primary perception, that could detect and respond to human thoughts and emotions. Now, this is proven, this is science. Not just plants, but they have this perception of human thoughts and emotions. What's the theme here? We're transmitting. We're constantly transmitting and we're constantly receiving. Are we managing what we're putting out there? What is it that we're projecting every single day? Are we contributing to the difficulties? Are we contributing to that thread of conflict? Or are we contributing to peace? Are we contributing to making this world better, making our lives better? I don't believe in telling people how to feel, how to vote, who to support. But I think it's important that we hold the space right now for asking ourselves the question, what can I do? What can I do right now that will improve my family, my friend group, my work situation, my community? In my opinion, that's where real change happens. And yes, it may not be able to enact some of these bigger issues that people are looking at, but when you look at the Maharishi effect, when you understand the electromagnetic heart and primary perception and how we're connected to everything based on the electromagnetic sense organ that Strieber's visitor talked about. If every one of us focused on our individual communities, as opposed to trying to put all our energy on one or two candidates and all the back and forth that comes with that, we might find a tremendous amount of success. I want to share I want to share some remote viewing experiences I've had, and I just posted a video today. And I share this because I'm struggling here to stay grounded sometimes in reality. And I think it's good to have these moments. I just completed a remote viewing project. Well, I completed it in September, but I just completed the video reviewing my data just the other day and posted it today. And I was tasked, and it was a training target to look at a volcano that had a UFO over it. And it was a blind target. I had no idea what the target was until, after my sessions were complete. And as a part of that experience, I I watched somebody die, not in a graphic form. I just knew that there was a person that had died and had an opportunity to see what happens to their consciousness after they transition from physical reality. And it was powerful for me. It was a powerful experience. And learning remote viewing has opened up these opportunities to have these experiences, these powerful experiences where it expands your worldview. It shows you things in a different perspective. And I came across Coral Cart's project that she just posted as well, that I was a part of. And we were tasked to look at they recently discovered an ocean beneath the surface that has so much water, it's bigger than all of the currently known surface oceans combined. There's so much water. And it was such a spiritual target for all of the viewers. We ended up getting, um, you know, Gaia themes, the theme of the earth being conscious and alive and intelligent. And it was such a powerful, beautiful session for me. And I want to share some of my data between that session and the life after death session here, because that's what's running through my mind. Those are the things that I want to talk about right now. So this next data point, this next session that I want to share, it's just one paragraph I want to talk about here as it relates to Coral's target. The video is released. I'll have the links for it in the comment section below. And you can find it at Sixth Sense Media as well. But you can also find it on the Hellfire website. See the full debrief that Coral put together of everybody's data. I just want to share the one paragraph I had for this because it was so profoundly spiritual. What I wrote was, it's all connected. The universe is one giant living being. Nothing is separate. It breathes, it expands and contracts, and we are all part of that system. Nothing is separate. We are all one. This is universal consciousness. Synapses in the brain are a similar scale model, and maybe that is all we are. Consciousness, in and out, up and down. Just breathe. Self-aware, but not really, not fully. Even God isn't fully aware of every aspect of itself, as we are all here to learn in the collective for a greater good. That was incredible for me. And that was one, like, hours and even a day after that session, I was still getting information from that target, which really has never happened. But what I said in a later statement afterwards, I wrote, this is after my session was done. I had to go back and just write a few more paragraphs. And the last thing I wrote was, I was amazed at the sense of oneness throughout the universe and the expansion of breath up and down. I've read about meditative moments, realizing everything is connected. I believe it intellectually, but have never had a glimpse of it through experience like I did today. I don't know if it is even relevant to the session, but it was a pretty incredible experience for me as a viewer, and I felt a deep, profound sense of gratitude. As a remote viewer, I've had a few experiences recently where I'm getting glimpses of things much larger than myself. It's giving me a profound sense of appreciation and taken away a lot of my fear and given me a much different perspective in terms of good and evil, or things being quote bad. I was trying to start this podcast talking about, they say we're in challenging times, and the point I was trying to express, and I did like 5 or 6 takes trying to start this podcast today. Um, but what I was trying to express was that people say we're in challenging times, and we are. We can make that argument, right? We can look at the evidence for that. But I think that we're always in challenging times here. I think that life in this reality, this planet Earth, is always filled with moments of challenge and difficulty. And I think it's easy to get trapped in the thought, the harmony, the resonance of this is awful. We're prisoners here. We're being tortured. There's more powerful beings that are taking advantage of us. I mean, I've talked about it on the show. I've written about it in my books, right? I mean, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole. But the more opportunities I've had as a remote viewer to view things and see things on a larger scale, the more beauty I'm finding in the universe, the more grace I'm giving to some of those experiences that seem awful or evil or terrible. I'm not justifying anything bad that happens. But at times I'm at this vantage where I'm pulled back and I see things differently. I see things from the standpoint of this person may be doing something really bad and really terrible. But number one, that's their journey and their purpose right now, where they need to learn, they need to learn something from that. And it also, on a greater scale, serves a purpose in the evolution of this, of us, even the terrible things. I say all the time on the show, if we never felt the sting of cold, we never would have harnessed the power of fire. And again, that doesn't justify when you have a serial killer who goes out and does all these awful things. But I like to believe that there's a higher purpose. Number one, I'm pretty sure we go on after this. Number two, I think based on some of the sessions I've done, we're growing. Our consciousness is evolving. I'll use the word purifying. And I want to share this session that I just posted. You can go find it at sixsensemedia.net. You can find it on my YouTube channel, where I'm looking at this volcano. And then I followed this person after he died. So I want to share some excerpts from that, if I can. And I invite you to go watch the entire remote viewing video where I debrief my whole session. But putting that out there just didn't feel like enough for me. I'm not done with this. I need to talk about it some more. I'll probably write about it. This was just one of those experiences where it really hit me. So I'm doing my session. There's this big volcano going off. A person died. And as that person died, I had the sensations in my body of the physical sensations of this person were diminishing. There was no pain. Everything was just growing dark as he was transitioning to the next world. But all of a sudden, these beings showed up. These, I'll call them workers or watchers, appeared. And they had the face of, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, the Nazgul. I almost said Harry from Harry Potter. No, when Frodo puts the ring on and he sees them with their glowing white faces, they're all like stern and warped. And I saw those faces. And they had these dualistic energies that were coming off of them, like benevolent but dangerous or deadly. Just this feeling of, they're very scary. They're doing good work here, but don't cross them. I don't interfere with what they're doing. There was an element of fear that I had surrounding them. And what they did, there was three or four of them. What they did was they grabbed this person and they lifted him up. And at the same time, there was this energy that was just descending from the sky. This golden energy was beautiful. And as this energy descended, I realized that this energy is part of a greater system in our universe or in our reality. And it's triggered when that person dies. It's automatic. This energy comes down. It's like this machine, right? This energetic machine. And it just descended as this person died. And their job was to lift him up to the energy. And they lifted this guy up to the energy. And as he lifts up, he dissolved. I had all these different perspectives, right? So he dissolved and disappeared. And I started seeing, like, I started jumping through different layers of reality. And I saw this layer of subspace, the different layers of subspace. And what I realized was that these beings, these workers, are not seen in any other layer. No one knows they exist. I mean, I'm sure people or intelligence know they exist, but for the most part, they are not perceived at all. They are referred to as simply the holy energy because they don't see them. That's how, like, I guess, deep cover these guys are. And I watched this consciousness and it disappeared. And then I was shown the next perspective. So, from the one perspective, he died, physical reality. From the perspective of where these beings were lifting him up, he faded away into the energy and was gone. But then the next scene I was shown was blackness. And all of a sudden I saw this beautiful like droplet. It was a sphere, but it's just like this droplet. And that droplet was pure consciousness. And that consciousness was living its life, reliving over and over again. It was like the life review as it sat there in solitude. And I got the impression that this portion could take several lifetimes to run through, meaning like, and as it's happening, all this stuff stripping off of it, like brown stuff. And I figured that was the stuff that no longer served it. And it's going through this life review here, this process as it's healing, as it's recovering, as it's learning. And then my perspective shifted again. And there was this table, and there's the droplet sitting in a row of rows of droplets. So there was dozens of these on this one giant table. And then standing next to the table was one of the beings. And its face came a little bit into a little bit more perspective for me. And I got hit with a burst of, oh my gosh, this is one of the Greys. If you're familiar with, abduction stories. And he was a caretaker. He was tending to these droplets of consciousness. And the purpose was to purify them. The consciousness was being purified for some purpose. And this reminds me a little bit of what we've talked about with Loosh, right? Loosh is this energy that they harvest off of us, apparently, for whatever purpose they may have. But I didn't get a sense of torture or sadism or evil. I got the sense of this was a benevolent, loving being that didn't understand the complexities of human emotion, but took great care in caring for our consciousness. That does now, what does care look like? It doesn't mean that it was nice to us all the time, right? It provided circumstances that we needed. And it would take its finger and stick it into one of the droplets, and it would change the experience for whatever that consciousness needed to have. So, like if we need to experience an apocalypse, finger would go in there and we'd experience an apocalypse. If we needed to experience utopia, same thing. I said this on my debrief. And I just watched this being like care about us and care for us. And when I was moving towards the end of my session, I realized I had this sense that that that's me. That's us. That's my perception of humanity. For all I know, humanity might not exist outside of my one droplet. And it was this weird sense of I have my own droplet, which is simply my consciousness among a sea of other droplets, yet we're also all sharing in this experience. So we're having a connected, shared experience, and at the same time, an individual experience as well. It was really strange to try to wrap my head around it, but there was this dualistic component to it in terms of the individual versus the collective. Both existed at the same time. And at the very end of my session, I wrote, I'm not afraid of them anymore. And it was just such a beautiful experience. And I'm so thankful that I had that experience. Like I said, I put it in the video. If you want to watch it on YouTube, you can see the full session. I'm so thankful for that experience. And, watching Coral's analysis as she's highlighting the spiritual concepts that are coming through, and then hearing all the turmoil about this upcoming election. And I guess my point is, and I don't know if I'm doing a good job making that point tonight, is that there's so much more going on in this world. And I think so often when we say things like that, the assumption is so much more bad stuff's happening. So many more secretive things are happening. There are secretive things, there are bad things. But I also think it depends on what perspective we're standing at. And those bad things, look, I get it. Sometimes we're right in the center of it. I've been for a very long time in and out of those horrible moments where you just keep asking yourself, when will it end? But I feel to hold this understanding that everything is connected and we're a part of something bigger and greater, I think helps me to better face those challenges. I'm not going to I'm not going to change the world by myself, but I'm going to contribute to this world in a way that is meaningful, in a way that I feel good about, in a way that brings value to other people. And that lets me sleep at night. I think about how do I spend my time? And I've got plenty of faults. I really do. But I focus more on how can I contribute to what's right in front of me, as opposed to sitting there and getting emotionally sucked into a debate about two people I don't care about, two people I don't believe in. So I'm choosing to focus on what I can do. I work in a school and I have an opportunity every single day to touch the lives of 500 people. That's my community. I have access to all of you out there listening to me by sharing the work that I do through my writings, through my remote viewings, through my videos. That's how I contribute. if we all find where we're called to, what we're called to do, we can all contribute in some meaningful way. So I share this with all of you in case things seem more challenging over the next 3 weeks. I hope that you'll hold some space and remember that there's so much more going on, so much more beauty in this world around us. I hope that you'll continue to develop your own gifts and share them with the world. No matter what happens, we have the potential for so much more. So with that being said, that's going to draw me to a close here of the podcast. So if you want to find more of my work, you can go to sixthsensemedia.net, where you can find books, you can find journals, you can find access to Reiki sessions. You can schedule a Reiki session, a Reiki appointment. You can join one of my Reiki cohorts as well. You can find my remote viewing videos and so much more. We have so much potential, friends. And sometimes it's difficult because of the signals that come our way that we start to harmonize with. But if you can, take a step back, find your voice, quiet the noise, and see where it leads you. I'm Dennis Nappi II with Sixth Sense Media. Remember to never stop questioning, keep an open mind, and let your intuition be your guide. Thank you.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend, be water, my friend. Be water, my friend, my friend. Be water, my friend, my friend.